I am Seth Grantley, and welcome to the GKT Community Podcast, a podcast where we meet one of the inspirational people who share their knowledge and lived experience on globalknowledgetransfer.com. Welcome to the Global Knowledge Transfer Community Podcast. Great to have you on our podcast today.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate coming on.
When you were at high school, what did you want to be and why?
I think fighter pilot might have been on the list at one stage, but you've got to have some pretty good eyesight, and that knocked me out straight away. And plus, I have a bit of a fear of heights. I wanted to work with computers. I just found them very interesting, something I was pretty good at. I probably like the gaming side, obviously, to start with. But as it sort of progressed, I just found a natural talent in that space. Something with databases, something with programming. And that's ultimately where I ended up.
In your adult life, what advice would you give that year 12 Matt?
It's not about a skill set per se. It's not about how a specific technology works or how a specific programming language works, something like that. It's actually fundamentally you're solving business problems at the end of the day. Knowing how the fundamentals work is more important. I didn't understand risk versus reward enough. I didn't have a lot of a mentorship early on. But having said that, I think the advice I would have given myself is seek better mentorship early, and that would have actually set myself in a different trajectory earlier rather than later.
Can you perhaps give us 3 of your career highlights that help us understand your journey since then?
I've probably worked with 40 or 50 different companies so far. I'm a consultant for 25 years now, working with data. So for me, it was about a variety of different projects. So I've worked with healthcare industry, aged care, retirement living, pharmaceuticals, NDS providers, pharmaceutical manufacturers, like a range of things in that space, as well as one of the largest chemist groups in the country. To be a highlight in itself, just the sheer variety of different projects and people to meet and building that network out. The second one for me is I've always been good at making things run without needing me to be involved. I once built a database, so it was automating data collection. The customer wanted a UI on it. 5 years later, they hadn't even put one on there because they hadn't had any dramas with it. I was pretty happy to hear that. I've also had the opportunity to train with some data pioneers, the likes of Ralph Kimball, now well retired, but they're sort of the grandfather of the data warehousing paradigm.
Have you been involved in a startup business?
2 businesses, actually. So one of the businesses I've helped scale is a consultancy business from a couple of $1 million to an 8-figure business. The other one was a startup, develop the product from the ground up. Probably the first 18 months or so. There's now a solo operator in that business, and they continue to run that business, but I was the main product and back-end sort of development in that software. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Help us understand what your current role is. What are you currently doing and why do you love it?
Yeah, I'm the CEO and founder of a company called DataLink, which I established around a year or so ago. I wanted to go out and build a company with a high quality talent. They have a very customer-centric sort of model. I love sort of managing and building teams, working with data, obviously. That's the whole point of the company name there. I love doing this work.
What stage is it in, and how are you building those supports around yourself now to drive success?
It's a pretty early stage still. There's sort of 3 or 4 customers now. We're actively marketing on various channels. We've got a lot of industry contacts, I guess, over the 25 years. So a lot of that is coming through word of mouth. They're reaching out and getting in touch again. A lot of content is what I'm trying to focus now. So with AI and the need for data to be such a pivotal part of the organization, it's not like an optional thing anymore. It's a mandatory thing. And educating people on how to collect, understand data in a much deeper way. So doing a lot of that sort of free webinar content and trying to scale from there.
What do you think the 3 key contributors to your success are in being able to play that consultant role, but then also go out and start your own business?
The first one is being able to talk to business people about business problems, understand finance process end to end, how the accounts payable process or accounts receivable might work, how the general ledger and how that works with other business operations. That's really crucial, but then converting that to technology. The second one is understanding what the customer's concerns are. Different organizations have sort of different priorities, and you can sort of listen to the things that they fear or the things that they're wanting to make sure are done right. Listening to people makes a massive difference of how you position yourself in the market. And I think 3 is build a solid team. You can't build it by yourself. You need to have good people around you. Fostering relationships is essential, right? you want to have sort of A-grade talent on your team. And to have that A-grade talent, you're performing at that level yourself. You need to build a team that's truly capable. I'm a bit like a dog with a bone. Once you get into something and you know you can see the benefit and you know that you're going to be able to help someone, you keep pursuing them until you can actually help them. And they realize that, hey, you can help. And then you start actually achieving the things you said you're going to achieve.
We've all been influenced by many great people in our lives. Can you tell us about one of those people and how they supported you to grow and succeed and the impact they had?
Basically, it was a guy called Doug. He gave me my first real opportunity to step up. When I started very early 20s, he gave me a position where I basically left Repco, ordering stock for overseas, and started with a pharmaceutical wholesaler. And it was really like building databases, a lot of the automation things that I do today. I definitely think it was the support. Why I'm so emotional about this is because sort of I was very green. I went there to become a manager at like 25. The trajectory just changed, Having that opportunity was, big. So I've always looked at this and thought that I wanted to give that same opportunity to other people. That's probably why I love what I do.
You've joined the globalknowledgetransfer.com community. What do you hope to achieve for both yourself and others in this journey with Global Knowledge Transfer?
I've always considered myself a caring leader, someone who's going to look after the people around me. If I can help someone impart some of that caringness and desire to do good things in the world, that'd be an amazing thing for me to be able to achieve. Second of all, I always wanted to give back. After learning quite a deep technical skill for 25 years, such a fundamental skill today where AI systems and things like that are being built on data, being able to help others in that space would be, again, amazing.
What are the 3 top challenges that you have faced in your life and overcome?
From a business perspective, seeing resistance to change in a lot of organizations. I've had certain managers that wanted to hold on to things because they saw that as job security rather than empowering their team. And ultimately, those managers got made redundant. To me, being able to always be open and keep learning and realize that there's no point holding on to something because you can't then move on to something better. And bigger if you're stuck where you are. I've seen a lot of people, particularly the younger guys and girls that I've seen today, are a little bit afraid to manage up. And that's been a big part of my career, is being able to identify a problem, come to a manager or come to the owner and actually have a chat about it rather than letting it simmer and sort of get bigger and worse before it actually gets fixed. I used to get upset when things wouldn't go right, or you find it very frustrating when a manager or a team was doing one thing but then saying another. And I think there's conflicting intentions. What the business needs and what the individuals are going for, or maybe even the KPIs they're being driven from, can be quite in conflict about, if you're being driven to drive sales but not worry so much about the cost or profitability, you're not going to care too much about the long-term viability of the company. You're just going to care about meeting those objectives. That resistance as well that I mentioned before, I've seen it quite prevalent in IT space. You're trying to come up with a new system or automate something. People will tend to get in the way and say why things won't work. When building this business now, even though I was able to scale the last consultancy company from $1.5–2 million to a $10 million business, obviously it wasn't just myself, but going through that process was very different from then going from zero, trying to build that up again and hopefully bigger and beyond that. The sheer effort required early on and the risk you take on. I've got a small family, I've got a 5-year-old and a wife and a house and all that kind of stuff, and taking that risk on to go from the security having a bigger team to just myself to then having an employee and other contractors to worry about, and it's a lot of risk. There's a lot of cash flow items you need to consider.
If you could have 1 hour with any 3 people, dead or alive, who are they and why?
For me, it's probably Einstein, Elon, Bezos, and Mark Rober. He's a YouTuber, but a very famous one. But I think they're all either science guys or engineers or good business people, I guess, is ultimately the fields that I've chosen. They're all either aspirational, big thinkers, long-term thinkers. They have a vision or a way of getting things done beyond the average person's. I'd want to chat with those 4.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. I really appreciate the time with you.
Yes, thanks, mate. Appreciate you having me on.
That is all we have time for today. Thanks to our guest and our sponsor, globalknowledgetransfer.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you can be sure to meet more inspirational individuals from the global knowledge transfer community in future episodes.